Our solo black belt picks up again. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. And first you'll notice that we've already hit 999 hit points, which means we get no more hit points, we get no more MP, but we do get a lot more punching. Currently, 200 for accuracy. The next breakpoint is going to be at 224. So we've got a bit of time before we get 2 extra fists, and that is the last bonus breakpoint. You could not get the one at 256 because 255 is the maximum. So we are going to be pretty quickly hitting the upper bound on what this black belt can do. Equipment-wise, we got very little, and it's probably going to stay that way. And so with that, let's go ahead and up to the ice cave. All right, Dan is paralyzed and still beating these sags up at the same time. It's a level of fair that I don't think we've seen Dan do previously. As far as what we can kind of expect from this ice cave trip, I imagine that it's still quite difficult for Dan to run away from things. His legs are in poor condition. One day we hope to find a white mage that can heal his broken legs, but as of right now, it remains a very stubborn problem. I could use Zeus Gauntlets here, but that would be really slow for an animation. I don't really care about the experience. Just hoping that one day Dan learns how to run. If they handle the higher level cap with a bonus damage to fist per level up, well, you get a lot fewer guaranteed stats. So while you do have a much higher level cap, you're getting a lot less on average with each of the levels, with the exception of hit points. Hit points, you tend to get a lot of hit points. And that's why it is really easy for all of the character classes to max out at 999, not just the black belt who always maxed out in the NAS version, or the fighter who usually maxed out. But we should have the red mage, the white mage, even the black mage, probably getting at max HP well before level 99. And some of the other things have been adjusted as well. Like you get generally a lot of faster levels and some extra bonuses relative to your position in the game versus the NES version. However, there are quite a number of things that are buffed, especially all of the major bosses. It's not enough to really make it so that it is going to be a serious challenge for a full party, but for a solo character, there are some things about the buffs, especially for Chaos, that make it really, really tough to survive. Chaos having 10 extra hit points is not something that you can easily overlook. It is going to be very, very difficult to do that much damage without a lot of healing items in return. Dan could walk on his fists. I mean, it would be slightly in the way of punching things, but it probably would help him run faster. And that's why the ice cave still kind of sucks. It's amazing how difficult it is going through the ice cave with even a very overleveled character when think about how much of a challenge it is on the NES version when you don't have the ability to save everywhere. Just that one change just incredibly reduces the frustration of these. Dan hit level 59 there. 59, by the way, is a very excessively high level for a full party. For a solo character, this is going to make things hopefully relatively straightforward for a little while. The full party, you're probably likely expected to finish the game somewhere in the level 45 to 50 range. Typically for the speedrun, it is lower down towards level 40. Really depends on what exactly you need for spells and hit points in general for your party. But a lot of the character classes are going to be kind of saturating out in their main abilities. Somewhere in the 40s. Do I need anything here? Probably not. Here is some violence. Hey, Gainax, welcome in. Thank you as for the good wishes. Enjoy the solo black belt playthrough. Yeah, wizards are actually really, really safe thanks to having the Zeus gauntlets. It kind of very much simplifies that fight. For a giant's fine just because Dan is going to have 1,000 hit points, so even if we get frosted by the wolves, it's not a big deal. And just having fewer targets, no paralysis, no death touch. Those are the fights that you really want to deal with. Everything else in the ice cave, though, is not nearly as nice as you would expect. Don't even say that guy's kind of a jerk. The 90% chance that we go first in that fight. They have flipped around the probabilities of ambushes and first strikes. So the mage, which has a 90% ambush rate on the NES version, is going to have a 90% chance of us getting a preemptive instead. Which usually means that that fight is very, very simplistic. Hey, Storyteller team, welcome in. Thank you for the good wishes there. Hope you have a great time with our solo black belt challenge tonight. And since we are playing the black belt, it is going to be a little bit more simplistic about what our equipment needs are. We're not going to get all of the ice items out of this dungeon or the flame items for the exact same reason. We just simply can't use anything. It is very tough for the black belt to get gear. You're going to have the opal bracelet probably in Sea Shrine as the only realistically usable item. You might get a little bit of value out of the proing. I'll have to see how much it does for us. We've already seen that the silver bracelet is nearly obsolete at this point. Gold bracelet still has a bit of life left in it. We'll see if Dan can get through an entire round without being paralyzed. This would normally be very easy on the NES version because the black belt has massive, excellent magic defense. But on this version, the black belt actually gets a pretty big nerf for magic defense. Magic defense as a general concept has been completely overhauled. And so you no longer have the unusual situation where the black belt actually gets better than the master. Instead, you're kind of quite bad at it. Get the throw, welcome in. Cat named Schrodinger, thank you much for the good wishes there. Someday Dan will get past this. And then we'll have to get past this again, which will be wonderfully fun, although at that point we will hopefully be a much higher level. Which gives us a further bit of assistance on these. Not little bit nicer. Matty Ice 316, welcome in. Thank you for the good wishes there. See if Dan snaps out of it. It's tough to get that many of the Spectre and Geist. Those ones that you can actually realistically kill with the Zeus Gauntlet in one shot. Well, the Zeus Gauntlet is the only thing our Black Belt has access to. Looking like it's probably not going to work out on this one. The race just do so much damage. Nope. Try again. King Booty, welcome in. Thank you for the good wishes there. It's also really tough for this fight to have even a relatively smallish number of enemies. The way that the formations work is they just have a list of enemies that can be added in a range. And there's a priority system for kind of first come, first serve for the enemy slots. But you don't have to be limited to 9 enemies on that list. You could have potentially more than 9. And that way, even if some of them decide not to show up, others of them can take their place from the ones that are further down the priority list. And that means something like that Trap Town, which I think has 15 as the number of scheduled monsters, is very, very often going to be stacked to the max. Eckler, hope you're having a wonderful time here. Thank you guys for the good wishes. Big Grand 3, thank you guys for the good wishes. Enjoy your night. I'm kind of surprised Dan actually ran from a Frost Dragon. Those things are fast. All right, money-wise, I bet we're going to be totally fine. I'm not going to even bother getting the cash down here. Which is good, because everything down here is murdering Dan. About the Mummy, Mummy Cockatrice Perilous Fight. That one, I think, has something like 20 enemies scheduled. So you have up to 5 Mummies. You can get, I want to say it's 7 or 8 regular mummies. Should be able to get 8 regular mummies. Because if it's only one Mummy, it'll still fill them up. And then you can also get like 5 of each of the birds. It is super duper stacked. One of the big changes, though, is that the priority order is different between different versions of the game. So in NES, for that formation, Mummy is the highest priority. Which means those get placed first. Mummies second, and the birds are third and fourth. So you're very likely going to have a lot of mummies on the screen. Whereas the GBA version places them in the opposite order. Puts the birds in as the highest priority, then the mummies, then the Mummies last. And so those you have nothing but birds almost all the time, which is pretty much a completely worthless fight. And already it's not the best trap tile because it's got so much variability in terms of the number of good enemies that you're going to find in there. But if it's all birds, it is going to be absolutely, completely worthless every single time. Not this time. And it's going to be time for some very quality time with our pal the Eye here. Let's get to punching. It is ridiculous how fast we're going to level up on this Eye grind. It is pretty much less than a minute per level. And that remains true all the way through the game. And I don't have to go to level 99. You're going to get some amount of experience from doing the remaining dungeons. You got Sea Shrine. You got Mirage Tower, Sky Castle. Waterfall's going to be a little tiny bit. Gurgle Volcano, a little tiny bit. But even those kind of short stretches are going to be a couple levels each, and Temple of Haze at the end, since the black belt doesn't have any spells. It's not like you need to have your levels totally finished before Temple of Haze. You're going to be able to get a pretty decent number of levels and take immediate advantage of them as you're going through the dungeon. So realistically, somewhere between 85 and 90 is probably going to be fine for a max out. 90 is just a really, really safe level. And the levels are this fast, but you might as well go for it. That's 62. Now, if you had to manipulate these levels, it would be a lot rougher of a story now. Coming here, I would expect pretty much every character class is going to be in some way able to tackle the eye. This is a fight that all 6 character classes can reasonably use. Even the Thief should be able to do enough damage by the time that you're getting to this part of the game to make this an interesting challenge. But from little manipulations, despite the fact you can kill the eye in like 2 seconds, get a ton of experience and a ton of gold. It doesn't help you with getting the exact stats you need. And that's one really big worry about going through some of these later challenges. It's one of the reasons why I want to kind of start with the easy ones so you get a bit of a better idea about how to plan out what the expected progression that you need to be is going to be like. Nice, we got 16 hits now. That means we've hit 224 accuracy on the black belt. Again, 255 is the cap, so you cannot get the next breakpoint, which would be at 256. But with fast, 32 hits is going to be a lot of hits. Every single time you use the power glove, that's going to be multiplied by 32 in that case. So even if the power glove is only giving you plus 12 or so worth of extra damage, plus 18 maybe, when you think about how big that multiplier is, the Thief's damage is going to be rather piddly in comparison to the black belts. In fact, the fighter. Even the fighter with really good gear is not going to be able to stand up to it. We had an intelligence breakpoint as well. Every 10 points of intelligence, you get slightly stronger spell abilities. This is true for all character classes, and it is not just affecting spells that you cast, but also items that you use. In this case, Zeus Gauntlets, because it is replicating the effect of Lit 2. That is affected by it. So, checking our intelligence score, yeah, we hit 20. So that is, in fact, as expected, going to be our extra intelligence. So good to know there that we have a slightly better time dealing with some of the enemies on the side. It's not really going to help that much because by this point the enemies are getting tanky enough that a 20 intelligence lightning bolt is barely going to be a scratch on them. In comparison, the Black Mage's going to have 20 intelligence by the time that you are fighting the wizards. So it's really no contest when it comes to magical abilities. basically going to take periodic safety saves so that the off-tile encounters do not cause you to lose a lot of progress. Can do some more like 8 to 10 eyes on average before start getting a little bit worried about one really bad undead fight surprising you. It's actually a surprisingly large chunk of this grind is drinking potions, saving the game. The beautiful, beautiful eye that you're punching. Seems like Dan's getting rather good stack gains on a lot of these level ups. Early game, I was getting levels with absolutely no bonus stats. And now we're getting a lot of vitality stats, which, yes, you don't need the vitality for your hit point totals, but vitality does impact your defense score in this version. And intelligence, which you don't have spells, but you are going to have the usable items. At least there is some utility in these stats, even if maybe it could be better things. Strength especially be really, really good. We need to have as much damage output as we possibly can. Agility is decent for dodging attacks. And for that matter, luck can be pretty decent as well. Agility and luck go into the calculations for things like running away, and also whether or not you get first striked or ambushed by the enemy encounters. Damn. Back to 69. Considering that we started at level 58 a couple of minutes ago, you can see the level is going really, really fast. If we weren't interrupted by the side encounters, this probably would be faster than a level per minute. Which is pretty wild. It's just kind of showing you how much of the acceleration of the game is applied here with the GBA version. There's 71 done. Gonna max the levels here. It's worth going to at least level 90, and it's so fast you might as well just go to 99 right now. But if you went to 90, you would be pretty comfortably hitting max by the time that you got to the end of the game. Hey, it's episode 24. Welcome in. Thank you very much for the good wishes there. Big things that we want to have with our level ups here are going to be our further increases in mag defense. That's something that has been kind of plaguing us the entire game, is that we are really, really bad about blocking spells. All the enemies that have had things like slow and hold and such have been quite painful. You'll get a bit better of an advantage with the ribbon blocking all the elemental ones, but you still have to deal with the non-elemental spells yourself. And that's going to become a pretty large percentage of the boss repertoire at the end of the game. The other thing that's really nice about the level ups is that these levels make it a fair bit easier to run. We were already well above the expected level target for the area that we're in. And even with that, we were still failing to run quite often. Level might have good levels, but your stats connected to running away from things are generally relatively poor. But if you have way too many levels, then you can kind of counteract that. Yeah, Chaos, welcome in. Yeah, Maniac, hope you're doing well. Tristram987. Enjoy the solo black belt playthrough, in which things very much get punched. It's caused gaze. What the eye is actually using there is the stare skill. Normally the last skill of the eye. This version they have reversed the order of the skills in the skill list, so you start out with stare and then only at the very end do you get to glance. Which is one of the reasons that makes the eye so much more challenging than the NES version, is that all of the really nasty instant death stuff is essentially the very first thing the eye does. And here it's the last thing after getting through a bunch of easy warm-ups. That may or may not have been intentional. Certainly in the remake it's intentional that they have reversed the order, but I could plausibly see that maybe there was some idea for an order that moves were used in. And for whatever reason, through nobody's fault, it possibly could have run through that list backwards. And maybe just nobody caught it. But I also kind of think the NES version was probably played enough to be well-intentioned for the order that a lot of things were done. But I have never had any kind of definitive clue. Is there non-elemental? Yes, it is non-elemental direct damage. It is probably one of the weakest and certainly most uncommon skills in the game. Right, straight to the different statuses happen depending on how the eye looks at you. That's because the eye is a beholder, but legally distinct. So there's actually many eyes that can be used independently. Level 80 pretty soon here. At that point, you know, we've already gotten more than halfway through the grind that we have for the entire rest of the game. This will be the last of the experience grind to do. The other big things that take a lot of time that are not just doing the normal dungeon gameplay is going to be probably the 15 puzzle. Trying to flip out enough of the really good items to be safe for chaos. That one's very tough because you are making guesses. You don't know exactly how many elixirs you're going to need. Maybe 3 is good enough. Maybe you need 10. And for most of the items that the 50 puzzle gives you, well, they are nice little bonuses because the utility is just going to be for a single fight. You got to be careful to carefully plan out what is going to be helpful and actually make back the time it takes to get the item to drop. It's going to only be the second place item table that we'll look at. Third place is where you get things like the fangs that cast Lit 2, Fire 2, Ice 2, etc. Those you typically farm out if you're going to be doing those to kill Astos, which I think only the Thief really needs to do. The way can kind of get away with some very cheesy strategies, although it's extremely time-consuming. White Mage, in theory, doesn't need the fangs. It's more of a time optimization. Red Mage and Black Mage are both going to be able to cruise with spells. But the Thief has a real problem. Thief does not have any of the defensive abilities of the White Mage, which let you kind of sneak through those fights with little effort. And doesn't have the offensive abilities of the Red Mage and Black Mage to actually do damage to Astos, especially. Hey, Falcon 84, we are getting our levels for the end game. This is going to be the very last level grind of the game. You either go all the way to 99 or at least a reasonable approximation to it. You'll pretty easily get the rest of the levels just as you finish the game up. The Black Belt is a character that really doesn't need money. There has never been a stage of the game where money is even particularly tight. That's one of the nice things about the Black Belt is just how straightforward it is in a lot of aspects. Alright, so we're at 82. We started at 58 about 15 minutes ago. So we are getting closer to 2 levels per minute, which is a very, very fast time on these. Once you get past the speed of the eye so that you're consistently going first, doing enough damage to one-shot the eye. You're probably spending more time with the victory animation and the loading screen than the actual punches. Dan's got a lot of intelligence points. We're actually doing for stats here. So at 28, we're actually almost up to another intelligence breakpoint. It'd be kind of interesting. I was not expecting to have that much int. Is there anything we could do with that? The main thing that we're going to use spells for is going to be things like fast, which don't depend on your level or intelligence stat in any way. But if we use consumable items, or if we use items like the Zeus Gauntlet or the Mage Staff, those are going to be driven by your intelligence stats, so possibly they get a little bit friendlier in places. Things like the wizard fight should be doable with one shot if we get one more breakpoint. You had the Mage Staff for fire too, then you can maybe think about fighting some of the fire weak monsters that are here. Actually, we'll not have that until after the Ice Cave is complete. Really feels like a missed opportunity. Alright, 86 is done. They're getting nearly 30 levels. I think we're only up about 50% on damage. Since we've capped out on the accuracy score, we can't get any more attacks per round. That's somewhat reduced the amount of effective growth the Black Belt has. We have long since capped on hit points. Those were capped back at like level 50. So we're also not getting any sturdier in the process. Which means our primary drivers here of growth are going to be the little bit of strength that you get periodically on levels. You do get a vitality bonus towards your armor, which means that we take less damage on everything. And then there's going to be the intelligence situation, which I had kind of just completely written off as being not very important for a Black Belt. But I guess I could see that there's going to be some encounters. Like we do have the trap tile upstairs, where it's a pretty big pain if you can't one-shot out the enemies. intelligence is particularly unimportant for it. It's not that intelligence is unimportant. It's that intelligence is unavailable. Feels like a little bit faster now. I didn't think we could punch this eye any harder, but clearly, Dan had other plans. Are there any other evil eyes if I was to? There's a lot of eye-based monsters. Most notably, instead of having the boulder, they turn into things like the Armin and other more mythological sources. They're just trying to get away with the minimum amount of actual Dungeons and Dragons content that they can legally squeeze in. A vast amount of things in Final Fantasy 1 were very, very Dungeons and Dragons inspired, and so finding ways to replace that with kind of your own designs and imagery means that you've got a lot less problems to worry about. Level 90. Let's check to see how the gold bracelet's doing. It is doing absolutely nothing. All right, we did it at a whopping 0, so Dan's going naked, as we always knew he would. It can, I believe, go negative, because what's actually happening is that you are losing the innate armor bonus, and instead you're getting the 24 defense that the bracelet gives you, along with the very minor 1-point penalty. At a certain point, you're going to cross over to your innate armor bonus being at least equal to the item, and then eventually to being bigger than the item is. Good news is that with so few levels left, we are certainly going to get some value out of the opal bracelet at the end of the game. That's another plus 10 on the gold bracelet. We don't have enough levels left to ever really optimate that. We've just done it ever so slowly, like probably 1 point of defense every 3 or 4 level ups is about all we're getting. So actually getting to a point where you are able to outclass the items is much, much later than you'd expect. Hey, Leaf, welcome in. Enjoy the Agnes. Enjoy our solo Black Belt Challenge run tonight. Going to involve a lot of punching of things. Right now we're punching the eye. Hey, Vivitz, welcome in. At level 93, we still fail to run from the images. That's kind of terrifying. Nice, Waltonia. So, you have studied this eye very, very carefully. Just like Dan has. Level 95, we can almost certainly stop right now and still be totally fine. But we're going all the way. What do we do with all this money? Throw it at chaos. Is it a 1 in 128 chance for the monsters? 1 in 124, because you actually have, in your 128 monsters, 2 copies of Lich, Carry, Kraken, and Tiamat. Those are implemented as separate fights with different monsters. That way you can have the different stats between the 2 encounters with them. Whereas everything else in the game is a single fight. Even if it's a trap tile or a mini boss or something that gets reused, it is kept as the same encounter because it's always the same stats no matter where it appears. Alright, there's level 99. There's our airship. And there is One Eye, who has been extremely thoroughly punched. 41 levels in definitely less than 41 minutes. Also definitely some significantly improved attack magic there. See how we actually did for total stats. So we're looking at 43 strength. We got less than half the strength points. 37 agility, about a third of the agility points. 32 intelligence is more than I expected. Black Belt is not a character known for their magical abilities, and this is still useful even though we don't have any built-in spells. We're doing things like the Power Glove, or not the Power Glove, the Zeus Gauntlets, the Mage Staff, anything that does damage. 68 Vitality is really high. That means we're going to also have incredible bonus defenses. And 42 luck feels like that is relatively good. Don't know what our base odds look like on luck. But I feel like that should be enough to pretty reasonably increase the chances of a lot of actions in the game that could otherwise be quite pitiful. Things like, are you able to run away from encounters? Answer is no. Are you able to get certain bonuses for killing monsters? Probably yes. But we'll see some more item drops now. You stop getting guaranteed vitality. You actually never get guaranteed vitality. It is only at certain levels where a point is guaranteed, and Black Belt's gonna have a lot of levels where it's absolutely nothing. All character classes are gonna be like that, where in the NES version, due to the smaller number of level ups, your primary stat is going to go up every single time. So for the Black Mage, that's intelligence. For the Black Belt, that's vitality. For the fighter, that's strength. However, with going up to level 99, they have put more emphasis on getting lucky with the random stat gains and less with kind of the predetermined, here's the level up curve that you are expected to get. It's good in that it lets you kind of outperform, get lucky on something, and it's kind of bad in the case that you can very seriously underperform, which is at times frustrating. Gonna do bonuses. So we might do a bonus dungeon after we are done with this run. Depends on how I am feeling for time on it. After doing the solo fighter, I did play through the Pharmacy 4 bonus dungeon for half of that. Could do the other half if we are able to get the time in for it. That would be doing Rubicante and Mylon. Those are the two that we did not do last time. Rubicante is the one that you typically want to do in speedruns, since that's the only one of the Pharmacy 4 dungeons that gets you a bonus item, which is going to be the 4th ribbon. Certainly not very helpful for Dan in a solo character challenge, but for a full party, it's pretty nice. Doing the bonuses in the PS version. Nice look at the kitty. The labyrinth of time at the end of PSP is incredibly intense. And I usually find the Pharmacy 5 dungeon to be the toughest of the original 4 bonuses. Pharmacy 6 is, dungeon-wise, probably a little bit tougher, but the bosses are a bit easier. Pharmacy 5 has got the hardest of the endgame bosses. 3 and 4 both kind of relatively easy warm-ups. They've got a few difficult floors, but they tend to be rather straightforward most of the time going through. We got our airship. Let's go ahead and do our cleanup activities now. We'll grab the bottle here. And all around, let's go and get the bonus items. So these are things you use as combat buffs. They last for one fight only. Means increasing your max HP, pretty worthless. MP, pretty worthless. Strength tonic may be okay, although it's probably better to do Power Glove instead. Protect Drink, this one I think could be interesting. Go ahead and max those out. And Speed Drink may be interesting. I believe we're at a point where it's not going to stack any higher. But I would be surprised if it didn't at least do something. They should shake off all of that sound as they're done using industrial strength Akuma blowers. Install set on your latest transportation creation today. Guess one thing I should see, does the proing do anything? It says it does. But again, it says the ruby armlet, which is the gold bracelet, does something, and it clearly doesn't. But let's try this out. For science, is the proing actually useful to have? Nope. 0 defense. Ruby armlet's down to -1 defense. So yeah, level 99, it is kind of tough to get equipment. What we got. we're going to do challenge runs on the Pixar Master version. I've done a Pixar Master challenge, which is getting all of the Steam achievements. Actually went up on YouTube last week. But in general, Pixar Master version is usually a pretty low difficulty variant. It's even easier than these later console remakes, with the one exception being that when it comes to enemy spells and skills for all the bosses, they've actually randomized the turn order. It means that you don't have any predictability about when an enemy is going to be doing a spell or skill. Or more importantly, which spell or skill they've got coming up. We just got the move Fading Path once. We're feeling really good about things. I imagine I do enough damage to pretty easily beat a Lufinian champion. But we'll definitely see it for certain once we get a little bit closer. Here, welcome in. Nice, Phil. Hope you enjoy the Final Fantasy Pixar Master Collection. I really wish that they were not charging as much as they do for many of these remasters. I can almost kind of slightly understand the Dragon Quest ones that recently came out, because those are pretty major game overhauls. Especially for like Dragon Quest 1 and 2, where the storyline is near non-existent, so they don't have a lot of material to work with. They are inventing many things out of whole cloth and doing a lot of work to make that happen. Dragon Warrior 3 is about when the story gets complicated enough that there's already plenty of material in the game and you don't really need to add a bunch more. But those feel like they can be kind of justified as being almost half-price games. The Pixar Masters for Final Fantasy, though, are from the beginning kind of intended to be just straight one-for-one recreations. It's not really adding anything new to the game. There are improvements in terms of like the visuals, better use of screen real estate, but they're generally fairly minor upgrades when you've already got so many remakes. But I think it'd be pretty nice if they hadn't been extremely aggressive with trying to price the Pixar Master Collections. Like, originally the idea was that you'd buy all 6 of them separately. And so while it's a little bit cheaper than a full price game, it's going to be 6 of whatever it is. And while you do get the traditional Steam sales and discounts and such, it's not going down as quickly as I kind of expected it is. So we're here for the Opal bracelet. Probably should grab one. See if we actually get any defense out of this thing. Alright, so we're still getting 9 defense. We're only taking 1 point of an evasion hit. This is with maxed out level, so we're never going to get worse when it comes to the equipable items. Let's go ahead and get the slab. I shouldn't need anything else. At this point, anything else that you get at the Sea Shrine is going to be entirely for money, and this black belt does not need cash. Very, very well for money here. GBA version better than the Pixelmaster versions. I feel like there are a few of the entries in the Pixelmaster collection that are well justified and worth it. Especially ones that don't really have a strong alternative version. Don't have really great localization prior to Pixelmasters, like Final Fantasy 5 especially. To a large extent, also Final Fantasy 3 is kind of in that same boat, where you had a game that got a couple of remasters, but it was never treated as well as the other games in the main series around there. So like Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 4 have a really long history of getting ported to a bunch of platforms. So they have a lot of care and attention placed into it. Final Fantasy 6 and Chrono Trigger, when they started getting out of these collections, those were a bit newer of games, and so they didn't have as many things that needed overhaul and changing. But the ones that were not super popular, and also not really getting into a whole bunch of remake collections, they tended to kind of lag behind a bit for the quality of implementation. And it really is notable for things like Final Fantasy 5, where before you had like nothing for a useful translation. Even the stuff that was in the game were pretty rough snippets of things put together. But having like an official version that handles all of these problems, just really nice to have like one thing that is taken care of for you. Not going to get any travel spells, which means we should probably do the waterfall now. I could, in theory, as part of my 15 puzzle farming, get the emergency exit items in enough quantities that you can actually use them in a lot of places. I want to save at least one for Temple of Fiends. We need to escape at the end for things like doing bonus playthroughs and such. That's a very handy item to have. You do not want to walk all the way back through Temple of Fiends a second time. It's already long enough as it is. I don't know that 100% there were no survivors to challenge our claims. Now that sounds like a victory to me. Nightmares I'm punching instead of running from, just because they have really high agility scores. Makes it tough to run away from. They're not dangerous in any way. I can make it very, very slow if you are continuously run failing for a whole while. That's emergency exit warp you 2,000 years into the future. Well, that's why it's an emergency. Also, it probably includes a lot of coffee. Even the Whiz Mummy's running away. While I'm here trying to get the cube picked up. It took some doing. Our defense sword. We would like to have the ribbon here as well, but we need the robot to get out of the way to pick that up. There we go. No need for a wizard staff here tonight. We will take a -7 hit to our defense for equipping this ribbon. That's a pretty hefty one. It's worth it because getting able to protection is just so incredibly good. Well, that's a lot of negative defense. At least they're very easy to punch. It'd be a lot worse if it was an enemy that was super fast, hard to escape from, and hard to kill. 70 is a pretty slow type of dragon, but frost dragons, those are quick enough that it actually does give you some problems running away from things. I suppose it could be worse. Here, that is wonderful, totally complete. I'm going to go back to Sea Shrine a little bit later on. I would like to pick up some other things before heading over there. Mostly, it is going to be getting a lot of the fetch quest items out of the way. I'm going to visit Gurgu Volcano before here too long. Still looking to get our second of the 4 fiends down. But if you can do carry, we can definitely very easily do carry at this point. Then you should be able to land Kraken as well. Full on high potions, which means I just should probably be dumping a bunch of junk that we're never using. Get my inventory a little bit less confusing here. We are gone with the silver bracelet, the gold bracelet. Don't really need an item that fixes mortification given our team here. Pro Ring, I think I am just never going to use. For that it is absolutely worthless. Yeah, so 0 defense. With the ribbon on, you now have elemental protection for instant death, so there's no point in having Pro Ring as a slot item. Ice Sword we're never going to use. Means I think that looks pretty good. that means we are ready to do Gurgu Volcano. Hey, Duncan here, welcome in. Thanks for the good wishes. Enjoy our Final Fantasy Solo Black Belt Challenge. This Black Belt is going solo. We will be several feet below ground by the end of this. Hopefully at least 2. Stay on the path, taking all the delicious lava instead of the horrible encounters. We do not need any items over there. We're going to skip those. I can save a lot of grief. Hit points are not difficult to come by, but they are very much a resource, as you are quite limited with the amount of spells and the HP that you can bring down here. As the number of agos you can bring down, that is unlimited. Bring that carrot. That is gonna happen right now. This is gonna be fast. I know when the Black Belt should wear armor or not. So in the original version of the game, the way that the Black Belt armor system worked is that if you used any armor at all, you lost 100% of your bonus. And as a result, you were either going to have absolutely nothing on, or you're going to have as stacked of an armor lineup as you get, which is going to be Pro Ring, Opal Bracelet, and Ribbon. What has happened in these later remakes, starting with the GBA version, is that there is a percentage of your armor bonus that is dedicated to each of the inventory slots. So as you level up, because it's percentage based, the bonus for that slot is going to go up. But you only lose that one slot when you use an item, which, as we've seen, you can pretty easily come out a little bit ahead on body armor. Gloves, you're going to never be ahead. Caps are never going to be ahead, but you're going to use the ribbon anyway, then that's probably a better deal in general. You know, very, very high amount of elemental protection from using ribbons. And Blackwood doesn't have any shield items, but if you did, that would be part of the calculation as well. Is proing better than nothing? Nope. Proing is exactly equal to nothing. Which for a defensive item does not really help, because that means you are going to be paying the weight penalty, but getting no actual benefit from it. And this is compounded by the fact that you have the ribbon on now, which means that you don't even get the elemental protection of death resistance from it. Which maybe you could argue that the death resistance was giving you some worthwhile bet, even if the physical defense was not helpful. Hey there, Dragon Zero. Thank you very much for resubscribing back for 90 months. Welcome in. Thank you for the good wishes, and hopefully you will never have to see the town of Belmont again. That is our goal here. And know if we can do it, but I definitely hope. I know, Adam INTH. I can't believe that whole Melmond language school thing turned out to be a complete scam. It really was the first thing that you'd expect. Just realized that once again I've forgotten to get the maid staff while going upstairs in Sea Shrine. It is a slight annoyance because the Black Belt is going to have enough intelligence to almost competently use a couple items. Nothing truly extraordinary, but your basic utility is actually kind of okay. If you miss Zeus Skull, you can always get the Thor Hammer instead. You'll have a couple of other good utility items as well. You'll have our favorite item, the chat. We'll also have Tyro burgers for everybody. Be certain to warm up the grill. For very lucky, you might get a T-Rex. They seem to be more common in the remakes. I think in general, every time that we've had to do like a full bestiary hunt, where the 3 toughest enemies are going to be T-Rex out here in the forest, 1 in 64. Iron Golem, bottom of Temple of Fiends, 1 in 64, and Warbeck, which no longer has the big bonus to appearance rate, and it's no longer manipulatable, so you have a much tougher time getting that Warbeck fight to appear. We're going to be going back over to Sea Shrine next. Over to grab the maid staff before we go. I pick up the maid staff, I don't need the light axe, so that's an item that we're skipping in return. I would like to get the power glove, of course, and realistically, that's about it. We got all of the good defensive bits that the Sea Shrine can provide. There's really not that much more out there. Yeah, I got no idea why Warbeck runs the Mixed Master version. It is definitely easier to find it, but the Warbeck's running at high levels feels kind of funky. I think we probably good here. Oh, we want to get more potions. That's what it is. Those are maxed out. These are all looking pretty good. Let's start thinking about our inventory arrangement. Probably defense sword gets used a fair bit. Zeus gauntlets are pretty popular. Items like that. One-type ice. Items like that. With only one character, it's a lot tougher to justify burning your entire round for those very small buffs. Probably better to just have more attacks. really great to have one of the noodlier fiends out of the way here. Let's get cracking. And I will punch the sharks. Evidently, that's what you want. They just want to see things explode into chunks of meat. And you know what? I can satisfy. Got mage staff. The easiest way is over here, down one to the left. And done. Mage staff obtained. That's gonna take care of our fire problems. Lightning with the Zeus Skull, it's fine. I don't even need to pick up the Thor hammer. Black shirt would be our last elemental option. Useful against things like these water elementals here. We'll come across that naturally as we're going through Sky Castle. The Bane Tiamat in the GBA version, no. The GBA version removes the 3% chance of critical hits bypassing, or 3% chance of critical hits bypassing the elemental immunities of somebody. Which is good for you, because you don't have to worry about the random instant death out of the middle of nothing. But also kind of sad, because some of the things that were funny, like insta-killing chaos, are no longer possible. On Tiamat, because Tiamat is weak to Bane, or just poison in general, then it's going to work. Kraken 1 is actually neutral, so you're going to have just Kraken's magic defense in the way. So it'll work, but the odds are not going to be super high. And for all the refights, it's just going to be gone. As for these ghosts, they are going to be very, very spooky. The ghosts are also going to be very, very persistent. We got to neutral poison. In NES, I believe that is correct. It should be going from vulnerable to neutral for all of the elements that are specific to the fiend. So each fiend has one element that they're weak to for the first fight. For Lich, that's fire. For Carry, that's status elements. For Kraken, it's lightning. And for Tiamat, it's poison. But when they take those away, I think it does go to neutral every single time. It would kind of make more sense to go to full resist. This is left a little bit of flavor behind. When maybe not leave behind though, is the Power Glove. Gotta love the Power Glove. Although at times it can be kind of bad. At other times, it is very, very good. Yeah, I was originally thinking the question was for the Pixmaster version, which has further modifications to block certain things for some of the fiends. In GBA, though, it is still weak to poison. Yeah, do well. Extremely weak to Runic. I don't know why he's so bad. But that's probably why we love him. Anything else here? I shouldn't, because we already have the ribbon out of the waterfall. So I think that you would typically want to have up here. You don't need to get any levels farmed out. I think it is just on to Kraken. So down we go. This point, you're getting rid of the sags, you're getting rid of the ghosts. You still have the water elementals. In fact, they are in much higher quantities than before. But overall, that's probably the easiest configuration for the Black to deal with. That's not what I want to do. Keep it. The Zeus Gauntlet has moved up to the top. Let's try that again. Anything else we can do while we're here? Should be totally done with Sea Shine. Totally done with Gurgly Volcano. Looks like the biggest thing that's left, besides finishing off Tiamat, is going to be getting the 15 puzzle done. Is that better to do before or after? Yeah, probably after Tiamat. Are you playing any pickups in Mirage Tower and Sky Castle? This character class shouldn't have anything that you need to pick up there. Thor Hammer doesn't do anything that the Zeus Gauntlet doesn't already cover. You will be getting the black shirt probably, just because it's nice to have the ice attack for very limited circumstances. But you don't need ribbons, you don't need the animate. Don't need to worry about Kraken once you get these defense swords up. 2 should be probably fine. And that's going to be a lot of fists. Alright, Kraken's already down. This is probably double the damage that you were seeing on the fighter. And it's going to grow faster, thanks to having more attacks per round with the power glue usage. Well, the Vorpal Sword, maybe next time. I think Dan is over his sword limit. 3 fiends out of the way. On fiend number 4, we should be probably done this right around the 7-hour mark. It does take a while to do the 15 puzzle. And aside from that, feels like everything else is fairly straightforward. May slightly depend on how long it takes to get a couple more HP recovery items. I would like to ideally go in there with something like 7 or 8. I can grab a few things from cardio now that I'm thinking about it that I should probably do. Go ahead and get those picked up. One of them's in here. I say it's the one on the right-hand side for this, but we'll take Bahamut's stuff just for the fun of it. If he complains, he can go and get that rat tail himself. There's this useless item. There we go. X potion. So that's our first full recovery. On NES, that is something that's complete junk, so you don't ever really get it. But they replace those with a much nicer pair of items on the GBA version. I believe the other one, this place is a turbo ether or something. Here's the elixir. That should be it for the good stuff. Couple of fiends got a little bit more that we can grab there. We don't really care about whether it's an X potion or elixir. It's going to be equally good for the black balls. You only need to recover HP. Makes things a little bit nicer. And just for my gratification, I think it was a turbo ether. Dry ether, that's what it is. That would be only really interesting if you had a mage in your party. Which one day we might do. And by one day, I mean probably next weekend is going to be when we do the solo Red Mage playthrough. We'll bring back another couple nights of Extreme Fantasy Final Fantasy this week. And then get into the real serious grind with Red Mage, White Mage, Black Mage, and Thief still left to go. Overall, I've been very pleased so far with the smoothness of the GBA version for doing a lot of these challenges. I was kind of worried that because Chaos was so buffed, that even if you could relatively easily get through the main game, you just hit a really hard brick wall there. But so far, that's not really been a problem. Dan's punches do twice the damage of a sword. Well, you see, Dan's very bad at math. And sometimes he doesn't quite realize that things are not supposed to work this way. Also, Dan is level 99, which is, for a black belt, kind of ridiculous. For other character classes, level 99 is a lot less of an impressive milestone. You are getting, yes, a lot of hit points and some decent stats, but you're not as impacted by level ups in terms of your raw power. Whereas the black belt gets, on top of those stat bonuses, the direct fist calculations, which are obscenely good. Probably faster to punch things than it is to run for them. That's why everything here is going to have to die. Now, you would think watching your friends get punched for 2,000 damage might cause you to be slightly hesitant to stick around for the fights. But clearly, Chaos employs some very, very loyal help. Alright, do we need the Bane Sword? I don't think we need the Bane Sword. Let's go to floor 2. Go and grab that black shirt. Ribbon not required. Experience not required. Damn, my service are going up. We're not even getting levels. I don't understand how this is even possible. But I am not saying no. Wrong shirt. Alright, there's our black shirt. That completes our item trifecta here. I think we don't ever really need the regular potions, so let's put those down there. High potions are going to be good enough for the rest of the game here. Everything else is looking decently good. So that should be everything out of Sky Castle. Be on our way to Tibet momentarily. We'd like to take a small detail and grab the extremely hardcore mana course. I believe you would be forgiven. Didn't get the shiny. I bet that would cause him to be so distracted I don't think he would finish. As for whether or not we find a Warbeck, that depends on whether we find a Warbeck here. It's pretty unlikely in one trip down the hallway that you're going to find it. Warbeck is, in these later remakes, very difficult to locate, being down to a 1 in 64. You're going to have potentially a pretty tough time getting the battle started. But were it to happen, I bet Warbeck could be punched. So yeah, 1% of the Pixar Master version, which is even worse than the 1 in 64. Pixar Master made a couple of kind of goofy changes to probabilities that make certain events less probable that were already very, very tough to get. And some of them got changed back. Like they made it even tougher to get some of the hidden items in Final Fantasy IV, which then was also an achievement, so it was really nasty. But so I just left as is. Some of these feats, like Tiamat, are about to know the meaning of the word pain. Two Ruse is up, just in case Tiamat starts doing some bites. It doesn't guarantee you like it does on the NS version, but does help quite a bit. try with 2 power gloves here. We're just going to do a little bit of a damage test. See what things look like with a small number of buffs on top of our regular attack. And the answer is going to be, it's going to look very painful. "18 hits with the extra accuracy. Those are 14 taken down. Like the only rare in the Pixar Master version is T-Rex. Also bumped up in appearance rate. Thought it was just the Iron Golem that had a much higher value. I remember when doing the Pixar Master All achievements that requires the full bestiary, that it felt like Wormek was the one that was the biggest pain. And the Iron Golem just happened like nearly instantly. But I want to say that T-Rex was not the easiest one to find. Even 6% more than I expected, because that really isn't that uncommon. Alright, here's the plan. We kill the fiends. Now we're going to go and slay the 15 puzzle. And let me figure out what I want for this. So, probably a Hermes shoes for the haste, an emergency exit, 3 elixirs? They should all be in the second place prize pool, so we can use that. It starts at 1 minute, so we can start doing 59, 58, and so on for our solutions to it. I think we should have plenty of time without having to do any kind of tomfoolery and trickery with these numbers. So let's get them started. The only weird bit is that you're intentionally doing it kind of slow so that you have plenty of time to put more completions in later. Just kind of, bang out here for a bit until you get a little bit closer to our target time. That way we can have more second place times easily fit in the leaderboard. This one's going to be our 59-second time here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so there's the army shoes. One of our items is done. Good start there. It is kind of nice getting a second one so that you are safe from the dangers of slow 2, but not like an amazingly big need. I feel like you can probably just retry the chaos fight if it ends up going that badly. A couple seconds before you get the first place time. Now we go up to the second place time. It's going to be 58. Yeah, one thing I've been goofy about the Pixar Master version is the completely new custom formations, including ones that wouldn't be illegal in the previous versions. 2 army shoes, that is fine, I guess. Again, we could probably use them, but not a super high priority to get to the second pair. What we need to get, most importantly, is getting those elixirs started. This will be 57. Four, 5, 6, 7. All right, emergency exits out of the way. That's everything except for the elixirs done. This has gone swimmingly well so far. If I don't get the elixirs, I could also do it with the mega elixirs, which is the first place prize. It's a little bit harder to get multiple of those in there. So if I am targeting, say, 3 pickups, you're probably going to take, on average, more tries to get that amount of prize out of it. Wait till 56 here. We'll have a couple cracks at it. Five and 6. Elixir number 1. We have had very good luck so far with the items. This is definitely not typical for what your luck is like on these. I'll actually go for first place now. 29 and change. There we go. There's a mega elixir. This one might be a pretty tough. 1 and 2 are very far away from where I need them to be. Once I get that first place, I can no longer get the second places anymore. So it changes the dynamics of how the rest of this is going to go. At this point, I need to just get only first place wins. But if I only need, like, maybe 1 more, then we should be fine. We've also got some pretty bad stats for our first row there. Might be better. Just a little bit too slow for it. All right, couple more tries at it. So I think overall it's probably faster having gone for mega elixirs since we got the other items really, really quickly. Hopefully this will not prove to be an incorrect decision. This one's already out. All right. I'm going to say good enough for right now. So we've got two elixirs, 1 X potion, 4 mega elixirs. We do have 2 of the Hermes shoes, so that's looking good. Got 1 emergency exit to exit out of here, which, assuming we finish a little bit early, we can go and do some of our bonus dungeons. But let's get prepped here. What do I actually need to buy? Anything? More high potions? All right, let's get those. And from zombies for mega elixirs, yes. So I actually got the first couple mega elixirs from the zombies on the trip to Ordeals, which is why I was feeling like I didn't need that many elixirs or other items at the end here to get to a good amount. I mean, I could go a little bit more aggressively doing these. Get rid of all this stuff we're not using. That's out of there. That's gone. Red curtains not required. Eye drops are useless. White robe, never using that thing. It's junk. No gold needles, thank you. Put the dragons back. Get rid of the tent. Don't really need the cottages, so ditch those. That should be pretty good. So everything here is going to be our big recovery items. I believe we are set. Yeah, Mega Elixir drop rate is not particularly good, but every now and then you get a kind of a good lucky streak. And in the time that I went to Ordeals, which the split is like 30 minutes long, only a portion of that's going to be zombies, but I was able to get 3 drops out of that. I think is really, really good. Like, that's a quantity of drops that probably in the past I've seen take like an hour or so. So I will have no complaints about it. I will have some complaints about Dan failing to run from grips. He's level 99. All right, let's go. Heading 2,000 years back in time. It has been a very fast second half of the game. We will see if that pace continues on here. It was probably about 90 minutes behind the fighter as we were just getting through Astos. And it wasn't significantly faster for the fighter going to do things like Lich and Ordeals and Ice Cave, but post Ice Cave, it has been just completely flying through things. The fighter had more stuff to go pick up. Fighter had a slower leveling process, even though I want to say we did a fairly similar strategy for leveling both the characters. Fighter might have done a less efficient grind pre-going into Ordeals. And I felt like the fighter went really, really fast, but the Black Belt has done extremely well in the last hour. Does really, really well is the Bible likes to punch everything in sight. These numbers are pretty ridiculous. We don't need to get the Masmune for this playthrough. It would only slow Dan down. Maybe not as much as these dragons do, but by a little bit. Before doing any of these runs, my guess for the fighter was 8 to 10 hours. There was like 5.5, so clearly it was a lot faster. And I was thinking, okay, black belt, because the start is so much slower. Now you're probably up to 8 hours, given that you have a fair bit of extra time involved in just getting out of the really basic early game stuff. That's why yesterday I split it in half, thinking it would be 4 hours and 4 hours. But this is certainly pretty good here. This is the one I want. There we go, another elixir. Dan's musical skills are so bad that it causes this piece of rock to melt. It even makes an odd gurgling sound. Hey, more zombies. Let's see what we can make elixir drop. It really shouldn't be the case, but it feels like the drop rates for zombies here are at least 4 times as high as they are in Ordeals. So, do we get lucky tonight? Nope. No bonus mega elixir. The fun one to figure out is going to be when we start going to the mages. Next up is Red Mage, and Red Mage should actually have a pretty easy early game. You got Chainmail Armor, 15 defense, which is going to kind of trivialize Garland and the Pirates to a large extent. You're going to get Lit 2, which means you're going to be able to kill wizards without having to have a lot of combat offense, and you can probably do a bit better of a job versus Astos as well. We'll have to see how well your spells do, but you're at least not relying on having enough damage to overcome Astos' physical defense. But I think the Red Mage really is going to fall down a lot harder in the late game, and just need many, many rounds of buffs on pretty much all of the remaining bosses. To the point where you spend a lot of time in the boss fights. And it's not like you spend an hour in the boss fights, but it's long enough that you're going to have to start worrying about survival on a very different kind of scale. Instead of finishing things in 2 or 3 turns, it might be 10 turns. The Remains going to mute Astos? Yes. However, the Remains does not have the Ruse spell, so you can't get your physical defenses up nearly as well. What makes the White Mage so good at Astos is that you cast Mute, so he loses spells, and then you cast Ruse a couple times, and he loses physical attacks, so Astos has got nothing. And while it might take you 200 rounds to finish the fight, you're going to win because Astos does 0 damage. Red Mage might be a bit trickier, but if you have some decent damage output because your spells are going to be doing 20 or 30 rounds, that might be 10 plus rounds through the fight, but you'll be able to survive through it. This gear is going to be enough bad road. I feel like Astos does a lot more physical damage in this version. It might just because you see him attack a lot more often. But I want to say, like, doesn't typically do 50, 60 damage with his physicals on NES, where it was like really common that being crushed by Astos even if you survive the rub, was just because the melees were so relentless. Yeah, I guess with Temper it'd probably be fast enough. Temper does cut down the number of attacks needed by quite a bit. That is a pretty good one. These encounters. Temple Feats does have a very high encounter rate. On the NX version, it actually gets slightly higher encounter rates each floor that you go down. It's not really noticeable, and it's not nearly as dramatic as Dragon Warrior, where the music gets slightly slower every floor you go down. Like that initially is like an effect that you don't pick up on, and then by the bottom floor, it's very, very obvious. Almost down there. Up to our first of the 4 fiends. Which lich is Dan gonna punch tonight? The answer is all of them. Secret Final Boss 0. Thank you guys for resubscribing back for 62 months. Hope you've been having a lovely time this weekend. Hope you've been enjoying the solo Black Belt playthrough. I definitely hope that you enjoy things getting punched. Hey, Indemon, am I going to be forcing intelligence on level ups? There is the possibility that it would be a good idea on the mages to have a decent amount of intelligence. I don't know if you need an intelligence point like all the time. And to a large extent, early game at least, you're probably going to want to focus mainly on HP. Red Mage especially has pretty bad guaranteed HP gains. But if you can force out a couple of early 25s, quickly getting up 200 hit points over what is intended, that's a very, very dramatic advantage. I'd say this is a moderately red dragon. Maybe we'll find other better dragons out there. Source, thank you guys for gifting out a sub there. Thank you guys for the support, and certainly hope that you have been enjoying these Final Fantasy Challenge runs. Red Mage is actually behind White Mage already for most of the game. In terms of HP growth, initially the fighter is #1, but the black belt does take over at the end of the game, and fighter falls down to #2. Thief was actually #3, and it mainly comes in play in the level ranges where you're talking about for the randomizer, especially where you go a fair bit past the 20s. You'll notice that the Thief is the first one to hit 400 by just a little bit. It's not an amazing dramatic difference, but is comfortably ahead of the White Mage, and the White Mage is comfortably ahead of the Red Mage by a couple levels. So it was really very common that the red mage was already pretty low on HP. It's just they got way, way worse with remix. And now red mage can not too uncommonly be down with a black mage for just having absolutely abysmal HP. Which is a bit unfortunate because the red mage just needs to have something that makes him distinctive. Anyway, they were a little bit overzealous in nerfing the red mage. Other character classes didn't really get nerfed. It was more that other character classes got buffed. It's like the black belt, the thief get a lot of early game combat damage, which for the black belt really helps a lot. For the thief, it's not all that impressive. See if we did not get that far for our walk. I'll take it. Sometimes you gotta celebrate the small wins here. I'm gonna carry this high. Your wins are gonna be very small indeed. If I need even more hit points, to be fair, they gave everybody a lot more hit points, including the black belt who did not need more hit points. We got our max HP like 60 levels ago. It was only just now that we got our Noodly Fiend refight. Kraken 2. Alright, that stung a bit. That was with a defense sword up, by the way. With 2 up, Kraken's probably doing like 50 damage, so nothing too impressive. That means we can go ahead and get really, really stacked here. With 2 power gloves. That'll probably let me kill Kraken in at most 3 punches. So until we're looking at like a 7-round fight. And maybe 2 punches. It'll be a 6-round fight. Alright, so far so good. But Tiamat and Chaos are going to have way more defense. It's going to take a lot more rounds to get really squared away. And that's why I have to have at least a reasonable number of recovery items I could use in Battle for Chaos. I got a pretty lucky Chaos fight for the fighter, so I don't want to use that as my target number. I was kind of tempted because Black Belt should have even better base damage with this and faster growth rate with using the Power Glove. But just in case I went with the same number that I had for the fighter. That number here was 8. DMS number is about to be punched. Two power gloves. big fists. Alright, so a little bit of extra damage required, but nothing too extraordinary here. Gone from 2 rounds on Kraken. This one should be 4 rounds. Chaos at this rate would be like 14 rounds? That is almost doable with this number of elixirs. But I think you'd probably want to get your damage up at a little bit higher. Somewhere around 2,500 should be good enough. If you go to even higher than that, 4,000, then you're in very good shape for finishing Chaos without running out of recovery items. Let's see how we do here. Our save game, we got an emergency exit, so if we want to do some bonus dungeons after this, we are able to exit out of Temple of Fiends. And let's begin the pummeling process. It's chaos time. Begins. All right, Dan starts off. Assuming that we're going to have to worry about melee at some point, let's go with 3 defense swords. Yeah, Chaos hurts pretty hard. Take our first recovery item here. Still a pretty hard hit for that one. So maybe we do an extra 2 defense swords. This is where the black belt's significantly worse physical defense is potentially going to hurt us. Our magic defense also not that great, so we're taking more damage on average for a lot of the spells and skills. I mean, it's non-elemental is going to be still pretty painful. That's a bit better. We're just going to land the slow too. We do have an extra Hermes shoe, so we should be fine with that. Where are my Hermes shoes? Did I get rid of the Hermes shoes? Uh-oh. Oh, wait, they're there. Okay. Cancel panic. So it's at the lightning spell. Means he's 1 away from Cure 4 at this point. The question is, do we want to heal now? I think we want to push it harder. We do like 1 more power glove. Let's heal up and then start swinging. I would love for him to do Cure 4 so it's out of the way. He heals 9999, which is not his full health, but it is a lot of healing. We would lose 3 rounds of progress. Rack free. 7,000 damage in. $10,000. 0. But now the punching can really begin. You're definitely taking a bit more of a beating here compared to the fighter. It's not outrageous, though. I think I'm probably going in with less overall buffs than the fighter had. There's 8,000. $11.5. 14.5. With chaos being hasted, the melee attacks are a little bit scarier. But chaos, probably one punch away here. I think this is going to be it. All right, 6 hours, 18 minutes, and 56 seconds. So significantly faster, even with having done the solo fighter. I still overestimated how long it would take to do solo Black Belt here. Which is probably good news, that it is not as outrageously bad to do some of the other solo character classes